Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the August 27th, 2019, 1 p.m. docket for the BMZA. Initially, I would ask that everybody turn off your cell phones or put them on silent. These proceedings are being recorded by audio and video, and we do not want that disturbed. If you need to have a discussion, just please step outside the hall and do so. We will... Can you tell I'm missing my cheat sheet today? But don't worry about it, we'll get through it. We're going to call some cases in the order of postponements, then consents, and then the regular docket. With regard to the regular docket, I think we do have some cases that have been, opposition has signed in. Want to be sure that anyone who has matters with opposition, the parties have had an opportunity to have discussions. We find that when there is that opportunity afforded, that some of these differences can be resolved. Actually, why don't we just call those now, if we don't mind?
Sure. We have the first case in which opposition is signed in is 2019-214. That is 3427 Hickory Avenue. I think Mr. Prettle is in the audience, and we have Mr. Wazulis and Mr. Gioso. If you guys want to come forward, or you can be requesting a postponement. Okay.
Oh, so you've had an opportunity to speak?
Yes, we have.
Okay. Would there be any merit to continuing to talk at this point?
Not that I know of, Your Honor. I thought he was going to call me. He called me once, and I was in Ocean City. I couldn't then. I never heard again.
Okay, would you like an opportunity to speak further with Mr. Prettle before you begin?
Only if they do, Your Honor. Sure.
Okay, great. That's how it works.
Next case we have where opposition is signed in is 2019-256, 1738 Appleton Street. Applicant is Christopher Thomas. And looks like we have one member of the community signed in for, no one against. I misread that, so that'll just go on the board's regular agenda.
Very well.
And then last but not least, 2019-259, 2409 Roslyn Avenue. I understand a number of people are outside in the hallway discussing that case right now, so that
We'll leave that alone.
takes care of that one.
Okay. Okay, we do have one matter which we believe, for which we believe a postponement is going to be requested. That is case number 2019-264.
Is that the one
that
that
it?
Nate's in the hall on?
Yep. We have a letter from the applicant requesting postponement. The board has a 48-hour rule for postponements. They've requested that. Seeing that no one has signed in opposition to that appeal, the board has the authority to grant that postponement if the board sees fit.
I have
Okay.
no problem with
Any
it.
objection to the postponement? No. Okay, so that's 2019-264 is postponed today. Properly posted. I'm also going to call the case of 2019-267, 2042 Cecil Avenue, Christopher Haynes. We're going to discuss a posting issue with regard to this property. You Mr. Haynes?
Excuse me. Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Haynes, apparently we've had some question about the property not being properly posted. And I think there was an observation by the staff as well, and it did not appear that the property was properly posted.
Yes, we've posted 3 signs. I don't know if I'm close enough. We've
Come on,
posted 3 signs. We posted a sign on August 6th. That sign was actually damaged by the weather. We replaced it a week later, and it was spray painted. Currently, we do have a sign up, and it's bolted to the building.
Now, this property is on a corner?
Yes.
So you're aware that you have to have 2 signs on
Correct.
different streets?
No, sir, I was not aware.
Okay, I think that may be part of the issue.
Okay.
Can you speak to that, Mr.?
Sure. The code requires that for corner properties, each corner of the property fronting a street is posted properly. Staff was out there this morning and didn't see any sign at all. So we would recommend going back out there. Certainly the board's call to make, but we would recommend reposting the property on both sides.
Yes, sir.
And then documenting that. We do have your signed affidavit in here that the property was posted at some point, but as of about 8 o'clock this morning, there was no sign on the property.
Yeah, so it has to be both sides. The people at the zoning office only told me one. So
So
can
on your
understand.
posting notice, it says,
I
if
didn't-
this
I guess
property is
they
a
didn't know
corner.
if it was the
Sure.
corner. Sorry.
Yep, so you'd have to have one off of,
Cecil and one
Cecil,
off
and then like there's that corner street there.
Homewood.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think procedurally, what you may be able to do is request a postponement to allow you to do that proper posting, and then we'll put it back on the docket when we're able to do so.
How do I do that? This is
Just
the
say,
first time.
I'd like to request a postponement.
I'd like to request a postponement.
Okay, any objection to the board? Granted.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh.
Can I just call?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, just call the office. That's tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. 67, postponed. We will next call the cases that are on the consent docket. And those are matters for which the zoning board and staff has received sufficient information to approve the appeal. When I call the case number, if you would line up to my left, and then we will swear all the parties, and then we will hear your matters. Those consent matters are as follows: 2019-257, 4330 Pimlico Road, Merrick Thompson. All right. Following that matter, we have 2019-261, 1433 Richardson Street, Mr. Adam Carballo. Also, Mr. Carballo, we have 2019-262, 1816 Alisana Street. And third, we have 2019-263, 3402, is that 3402 through 3404 Eastern Avenue? Mr. Carballo, thank you so much. Okay, I think we have all of our parties for the consents. Case number 2019-257, 4330 Pimlico Road. I'm sorry, let's go ahead and swear you all, you too.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good. Again, calling the case of 2019-257, 4330 Pimlico Road. Mr. Thompson, this is a request to use portion known as 4330 A.B. Pimlico Road as a cultural facility, museum, library, classroom, and historical society. Is that correct, sir? Yes, all right. Do we have any staff reports?
Yes. Martin French, for the Baltimore City Planning Department. Planning Department has reviewed this application, has also met with the applicants, and is recommending approval of this application. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Thompson, is there anything you'd like to add to your application?
No, we also requesting a variance on the parking.
A parking variance? Are we aware of that from the application? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Well, I can tell you that the board, having heard your appeal, believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Have a great day. Calling the case of 2019-261, 1433 Richardson Street. Mr. Carballo, this is a request to construct an addition at the second floor rear. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Do we have any staff reports?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Mr. Carballo, is there anything you'd like to add to this application?
No, sir.
Very well. The board, having heard your appeal, believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. It's 261 now. 2019-262, 1816 Alisana Street. This is a request to construct a deck at the second floor rear with garage door. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. Do we have any staff reports with regard to this property?
Yes, Planning Department has reviewed this application, notes that this property is located in the Fells Point Historic District, also the Chesapeake Bay Critical Area, and the 500-year floodplain. For these various reasons, there are going to be some additional standards that will be required following approval of this application. The Department of Planning recommends that approval of this application be subject to the condition that all improvements are completed in accordance with critical area and floodplain regulations and in accordance with an authorization to proceed issued by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Carballo, having heard those conditions, are they acceptable to your client?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add to your appeal?
No, sir.
Oh, very well. The board, having heard your appeal, believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you. Finally, case number 2019-263, 3402 through 3404 Eastern Avenue. This is a request to consolidate 3402 Eastern Avenue and 3404 Eastern Avenue and use for mixed use. First floor is commercials, and second and third floors is 3 dwelling units. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, it is.
All right. And do we have any staff reports for this property?
Yes, Planning Department has reviewed this application, noted that this property is in the Highlandtown Business Area Urban Renewal Plan area. It is also in the Highlandtown Main Street area. And for that reason, there are specific standards to be applied to the renovation of the facades of these buildings as may be necessary in order to comply with other code requirements. The Department of Planning recommends that approval of the application be subject to the condition that all improvements, including facade alterations or reconstruction, are completed in accordance with facade improvement standards for the Highlandtown Main Street area and with plans approved by the Department of Planning. Thank you.
And Mr. Carballo, are those conditions delineated by Mr. French, are those conditions acceptable to your client?
Yes, they are.
All right, do you have anything else to add to your appeal?
No, sir.
Very well. Board, having heard your appeal, I believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you, Mr. Carballo.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me just give a little heads up. We're now going to go to our regular docket. When I call your case, the appellant will be to my left, the opposition will line up to my right. The way the proceeding will go, to the extent there's opposition, I know most of these cases do not have such, but the appellant will go, the opposition will be heard from, and the appellant gets the last word, just like in court. And we'll go forward. Case number 2019-141, 3211 Georgetown Road, Cindy Williams. And we have this as a request to erect approximately 1,125 linear feet of 10-foot-high electric perimeter fence. Is that correct, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good
And these
afternoon. Hold on, could we swear the?
Oh,
board?
sorry.
Raise your right hands, please. You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Ready, Ms. Williams?
yes.
Okay. And do we have any staff reports for this property?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Very good. Ms. Williams, tell us about your project.
Good afternoon. Cindy Williams with Electric Guard Dog. And this is West Menard. I'm sorry. With the business, with Truck Works. And I just wanted to mention that these two cases, it's the same property, but they are actually two separate parcels, so it's divided into two separate cases, but it's really just one property.
And
what
the
you're
other
asking
case
for.
you're referring to is 2019-230-237?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
1701 Salco Road?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
I know you've heard several of these cases before probably, so I'm not going to go into any long discussion. Just the reason for the variance is for height. As you know, the maximum height allowed is, I believe it's 6 feet or 8 feet. And this fence has to go 2 feet taller than that, a minimum of 2 feet taller. The standard is for 10 feet. So, because it is the security fence that goes behind a non-electrified fence, if they were the same height, being 6 inches apart, the bad guys that are trying to get in could just simply climb over the fence, climb over the chain link fence and hop over. So, therefore, every time we have one of these, we have to request a variance for a 2-foot height.
Are there two fences now?
There's one fence now. He has a perimeter chain link fence, which is slatted around, partially slatted, and we go right in behind that.
Got it.
Okay.
So the 8-foot fence is what exists now, which is why you're asking to put up
Correct.
interior fence. And how much space will be between the two fences?
About 6 to 12 inches, which is the standard for the installation for these.
Will there be signage on the perimeter fence, the outside fence, indicating that the interior fence is electrified?
Yes, ma'am, and it's in 2 languages.
I mean, this is a pretty big, I'm assuming since it's 2 properties, this is going to be a long fence. How many signs will be posted?
They're posted every 30 feet.
What is the property that's being secured by the fences?
Hello, so I'm Wes Minyard. I'm with Select Event Group. So it's an equipment yard. So it's extruded aluminum, electrical equipment, generators.
And you've had issues with break-ins?
We've had 5 burglaries since we started operation in January.
January this year?
This year, and the final filing was $94,000 on the loss.
I see. Okay.
For how much was stolen as a result of, or? Okay.
Because we couldn't control the perimeter.
Got it.
Understood.
Cut holes, or just they'd hit one side, then they'd go cut a hole in the other side.
Aggressive.
Yeah.
Let me just clean up this record a little bit. The first case we were talking about was 29-141, which is 3211 Georgetown Road. We were also talking about 2019-237, 1701 Salco Road. And just to read into the record, the purpose of that appeal is to install a 10-foot-high electric security fence, battery-powered, low voltage, 12-volt, to be located inside of the chain link fence already in place. And that's what we've been discussing here.
That is correct, and it is one continuous
It
system.
is 2 addresses on one lease.
Very
Right.
well, very well. Any more questions from the board? Okay, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the case of 2019-214, 3427 Hickory Avenue, Nate Prettle. Good afternoon, Mr. Prettle.
Good afternoon.
We have this as a request to construct a new 3-story dwelling, a multifamily 3-dwelling unit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Let your opposition come on over. Could you slide on over here, sir? All right.
I didn't know that you could submit a petition ahead of time, and I have the petitions.
Okay,
understand.
we will take that, up at the appropriate time, but we're gonna get you all sworn, and then, we will hear from the parties.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and again, hold what you have there. Do we have any staff reports for this property?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. And we're gonna let, again, as I mentioned, we're gonna let the appellant move forward. At the time you speak, you can present your paperwork that you'd like for the record, and then we'll go forward. Mr. Prettle, tell us about your project, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Nate Prettle, AD Associates. I'm here with Don Someret, who, along with his partner Marshall Klein, are the purchasers of the lot and the developers. And a little bit of history before I get into the proposal. The lot that is the subject of this zoning hearing was at one time 2 single-family lots that I think about 15 years, my understanding, about 15 years ago, there was a propane tank in the basement of one of the homes that exploded. It totaled both of the houses. The city then came in, condemned the properties, demolished them, put up 2 retaining walls, one foot, one 1 foot on inch, that still exists today on either side of the property, and went through a land disposition process, eventually through vacants to values, which led to my clients purchasing the lots again through vacants to values with a land disposition agreement that requires a residential development. Brings us here, an application to the zoning board. The proposal, as you stated, is to construct a new 3-story dwelling with 3 dwelling units. You have to remember, this was always, at one time before the 2 lots were consolidated, 2 dwelling units. And get into a little, we're requesting several variances here. As you mentioned, the apartments are 2 two-bedroom units and one one-bedroom unit. This is a block of primarily, except for the southern corner where Roland Avenue and Hickory meet 34th Street, of 2-story dwellings. This 3rd story meets the city zoning code and planning department's design guidelines for new construction and additions on consistent row house blocks, meaning the setback meets, and I believe the planning department did not raise that as an issue, and we'll work with them on building permits for final design, assuming that we should obtain approval. So the variances we're seeking today, one, as the first one to address, would be off-street parking. This is a lot that has no ability to provide off-street parking. There's no alleys or front-loading garage potential that would require taking cars off the street. And so, yeah, there's never any off-street parking provided. There's no possibility. So we have no choice but to request a variance. Here, this would be for 3 parking spots versus the 2, where there was 2 dwelling units. I think really the key to why we're asking for 3 rather than 2 dwelling units is when Mr. Someret and his business partner purchased the lot, they looked at a number of different development potentials. One, doing 2 single-family dwellings the way that it was before. Because of the retaining walls that are not be able to be moved, the property is essentially shortened by 4 feet. These were 12-foot wide lots as is, and so we're left with an 18-foot. Putting 2 9-foot row houses is not something that anyone would do these days. The other would be to do a 2-unit multifamily building. And I think Mr. Someret looked closely at that, and the most likely potential would be for 2, 3, more likely 4 bedroom units. In today's market, he felt that the plan that we're presenting today, which would be 2 two-bedrooms and 1 one-bedroom, a total of 5 bedrooms. Again, this is 3 less bedrooms than the 2-unit proposal, would fit better into the character of the neighborhood, would fit better in the character of the types of residents that are moving in and provide a diversity of housing options that is more in line with some of the other multifamily buildings on this block and within the immediate area, which I speak to a little bit. Regarding the other variances, we're asking for rear yard lot coverage and interior yards. The necessity comes from these retaining walls that severely restrict the developer's opportunity and the location of where any structure could go. We're severely limited, which causes it to go further into the rear yard than otherwise. From the front of the property, this is designed to look identical to what the rest of the block looks like. Setback from the front property line, front porch, and 2 stories. It's only the 3rd story, which would not be visible if you're walking down Hickory, this side of Hickory. Probably the other side a little bit would be visible, but we tried to design it as much to the city planning department's design guidelines as possible. And I don't know if, Don, if you'd like to add anything. That's the gist of the project. I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions from the board and would like to have the opportunity to respond to the opposition.
Okay.
Idan Sameret, the developer for this property. The main thing is what Nate was mentioning is the fact that we restricted from a 24-foot double lot basically to just about 18, 19 feet, and we can't do anything about it. So that's changed our entire plan. We purchased this property with the goodwill of developing it and moving forward. So we're hoping to do so as soon as possible.
Question, Mr. Prettle, if you had, instead of the 3-story dwelling with 3 dwelling units, if you had 2 single-family dwellings, though they'd be very small and you might not have a market for that, would you still need a variance for the parking?
That's correct. We would still need a variance not only for parking, but most likely for lot coverage, interior side yards, and possibly rear yards as well. I mean, most of the existing structures are non-conforming in this regard. And I should mention the characteristic of Hickory, while it's zoned R6 on the west side, R7 where the subject property is, allows multifamily by right, assuming you meet all of the other bulk and yard regulations, which we do not in this case. But it is in character with, I discovered at least 5 additional single-family, quote, lots that have multifamily on them. There's the 10-unit building 80 feet away at 3400 Roland Avenue, both 3420 and 3422 Hickory, about 70 feet away, directly across the street, are both 2-unit buildings, zoned R6. So the level of nonconformance in terms of a density is greater on those 2 properties, as well as the other one I'm going to mention, than it would be under this proposal. As well, about 150 feet away, I think 3400 Falls Road, or maybe 3415 Falls is a 4-unit property, and there's several other 2 to 3 unit properties sprinkled throughout that block. So this, in our opinion, is in character, completely in character with both what R7 allows as well as this portion of Hamden. And we did present this both to the Hamden Community Council Zoning and Land Use Committee, which we had no objection from, as well as the Hamden Community Council at large. And I do understand there is some opposition here.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank
Prettle.
you.
Sir? We'll hear
Are
from
you
you.
on the community council?
I am, but not, it's completely separate from my role in this, and I certainly do not vote on anything.
You said the plans.
Sir, you have to speak to us.
I'm sorry. The
Sorry,
plan-
can you tell us your name again?
Wayne Gioso.
Okay, Mr. Gioso, go ahead.
They stated that the plans today were to keep the character of the neighborhood. My question then is, why have 3 apartments in this building? There's not one on that side of the street that has this. He's talking about the opposite side, but why are they building 3 apartments and not 2?
I think he explained that with regard to the marketability of the particular property.
No, Your Honor, he said 2 houses. I'm talking about 2 apartments. They're putting 3 apartments. Why? Can I ask a question?
Well, I think we heard it. I don't know if you did, but
What's the reason for building 3 apartments versus 2?
you could speak to that again.
Sure, I think I did address that earlier, is that the first thing we looked at was actually 2 apartments, and the proposal would have been for 2, 3, more likely 4-bedroom apartments, and we felt both from a marketability standpoint and, practically, not that this was the reason the developers, but the parking impact and the land use impact would have been greater for 8 bedrooms than it would be for 5 bedrooms. And we felt these would be more marketable. They would just be better both for the developer as well as for, in our opinion, the community.
Marketable, Your Honor, as far as what? Income coming from the property?
Sir, I think
That's not what I said, and I did not mention they were doing
No,
this
but
solely
they're-
to increase the economic
You're gonna
value.
get more, they're rentals. He's a developer. They're going to do this to make income out of the property.
what is, tell the board what your concern is with regard to what it is they're doing.
Okay, cut to the chase.
Yes.
He's talking about 800, 2 units would only be 800 square feet, which would be 1,600. They're building 4,000 square feet, okay? They want to go back to an alley. That alley's a dead alley. When they built the 10 units that he's talking about, that was at the end of the alley. They allowed them to put up an 8-foot-high concrete block wall. You can't get out of it. You're dealing with the garbage trucks can't go in there anymore. I don't know where they're going to put the garbage cans from here. But the thing is, they're talking about walk down the street, you won't see the 3rd floor. Can't happen because you're going to see the 3rd floor. Both houses on each side have chimneys. They're going to be 10 or 12, 15 feet above the chimneys. What are they going to do about the chimneys? What are they going to do about if they have central air conditioning? Where are they going to put the condensers for the central air conditioning? It's all about making money and putting 3 apartments in there versus income from 2. I've had over 100 properties in that area, and you've never seen me before. I don't create problems. But this is so ridiculous. I have the petition, which I like to give to each of you. There's 30 signatures. I stopped it at 30 signatures.
And what's the petition for?
Well, I can read that.
If you have a copy for me, Mr.
Well,
Musil.
There you go.
Thank you.
As far as the parking's concerned, I had 18 houses on this street. I'm down to this one. This is the street. Every day, there's your parking. Can't park. And a woman coming home, they have babies. They have to park the car, double park, people blowing the horn. It's a very thin, it's not a wide street. It's one car, okay? If 2 cars come, one has to stop. You try to go around each other, you go slow. If she has a baby, she's got to park her car, take the baby in the house, get back in her car, ride around the neighborhood till she finds something. Parking is horrendous in Hampton, plus all the restaurants. The second thing is if they're going grocery shopping, if you can't find a place near your house, you got to park the car, go in the house, put your groceries in the house, come back out, get your car, and hope you find another parking space.
Okay, let me stop you there for a second. Were there 2 single-family dwelling units in that space previous to that?
That's correct.
Okay.
800 square feet.
So if they put 2 houses in there, wouldn't there still be a problem for parking for those buyers of that property?
Well, you wouldn't put 2 houses in there. You would put maybe 2 apartments in there. The people that bought the property from the city before tried to do it, and they weren't allowed to do it. They stopped them. I don't know what this is all about here, but
So your concern is if there were 2 apartments, you would think you would need 2 parking spaces, right?
Absolutely, you would.
So there are 3 apartments,
At
and
least.
so the concern you have is 1 extra parking space
But
that
they're
couldn't be
building
accommodated.
4 bedrooms. Maybe, how many people are gonna live in 4 bedrooms? 1 person with 1 car? I would think you'd have at least 3 people living in that apartment.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, there's one bedroom and
Wait,
two
if you
bedrooms.
have, he has rebuttal.
Well, I want to clarify the record, because I don't want to get it muddled. Let's get it clear. What's going to go in the apartment is not what you just said. The property is going to be 2 bedrooms, right? And 1 bedroom.
That's correct.
Okay,
So it's total of 5 bedrooms.
correct. All right.
So, I just wanna, I know you already covered this, but now that I see the image of the whole of where it is, it's gonna line up with the other houses, right?
That's correct.
It's just gonna have 1 story above the other houses.
Yes, that story would be
Sir,
recessed
hold on.
that story would be recessed in additional 10 feet or so.
Setback on the
So
top.
So there's gonna
Setback.
be like a porch or something, or?
There, yes.
But the third story would be recessed in even more to avoid people will not see the third story unless they go to the other side of the street. I've done that many times in Canton because the new guidelines ask us to put third story recessed when the
This is
block
the-
has two stories.
This is the front.
Correct,
That's correct.
And the back is gonna be all one fluid.
correct.
That's correct.
If you look at the petition,
And this is in the middle of a block, right?
That's correct. It's towards the southern end of the block, but yes, I mean,
Will there be room for trash cans in the back before, I mean, is there like?
the
a
trash
shed?
cans will most likely, I forget the way that this block is handled. Yeah, I live about 3 blocks away in Hamden, and
Hold on,
sometimes,
sir. Hold on, one at a
It
time.
looks like there's trash cans in the front. I'm looking
yeah,
at
this
the
block, I believe they pick up in the front. And again, there are a number of multifamilies on this block of Hickory that do the same thing.
In the front is staying the same.
Correct.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
if you look at this, this is a picture of the block, which is in the petition. Every one of these houses has a backyard, except where the subject property is gonna be. They wanna bring it back to the alley, which is blocked off here. If you see, no, not that one, sir. The other one. Yes. Every one of these properties, which is yellow, has a backyard. This subject, they wanna bring it all the way back to touch the alley,
Which presents what?
it's, that, if they build this thing, I'll have no light, no air. They're putting a huge building, and it's going way above 10 feet above that building, if you see it. These buildings, in the back, that one part of that building is not even 10 foot high. And they're gonna build this 35 foot. Plus, are the condensers going on top of the 35 feet? Or are they gonna lower the building and the condensers, which are 3.5 feet tall? Average, some of them are taller, but giving them benefit of the doubt. Are the 3 condensers for these 3 units going on top of the 35 feet? Or are they gonna have to, is that topped out? But I'll have no light or air. It's,
When you say you, are you on either side of this property?
yes,
Okay, what's your address?
3431.
Okay. Just so the record will be clear with regard to that, can you speak to
Sure,
that issue?
sure. And I think this is the primary reason for a number of the variances that, sure, this may be the only one that's going to the rear lot line, but this is also the only property that is confined by 2 retaining walls that were put in by the city after a house exploded, and that is not as a condition at any of the other houses. So we're in a situation here where we have a severely restricted lot. We cannot build to our side property lines. It cannot be done, and therefore the house is going to be pushed a little further into the rear
The
yard.
row houses, they all have walls on each side. These are little 800 4-room houses that when they were built, they didn't even have bathrooms in them. These were added on later. It's historic, but they're not restricted to putting everything back the way it is. But to build if you're looking, here's the alley in the back. There's constant water flowing right behind this property that he's talking about.
Mr. Giosa, do you represent a community council, or are you representing yourself as a private?
No, I'm
property owner?
representing the 30 people that protested this. It's in there. There's 30 people that protested this, just in that street.
Is that like a neighborhood association, or you went door to door to get the
Door to
signatures?
door, sir.
Okay.
Just the people to the right, people to the left. I didn't even bother. I mean, I could have gone up the whole street, got 70 people.
I'm sorry, this photo is the rear of
This
what
property, here's another photograph.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is the first time I've seen this petition, and I was at a Hamden Community Council meeting just last week with someone who lives on this block who's a board member. And this is the first I''ve ever heard of this, seen this. I don't know what was communicated to these folks. I trust the authenticity of this 100%, but I just have no involvement in it, nor have I seen
Thanks for
this.
letting me know. Mr. Gioso, hold on. Are you a member of the community association that Mr. Pruddle said he met with and spoke with?
That he met with? I don't know. He's saying that he met with and spoke with. I wasn't invited.
All right, well, tell me again, the community association.
For the Hamden Community Council, Mr. Samaret, as well as his business partner, we presented to their, what's called ZLUC, Zoning and Land Use Committee, chaired by a fellow board member named Martin Burian, and we met with them in June prior to the first hearing, and we've provided updates. I've provided casual updates to them since then.
Are you familiar with that organization?
No, I've never heard of it.
They're the association of record for the Hamden neighborhood.
Here's the 6 houses down, they blocked the wall of the alley off, put a 8-foot
6 houses down from what, sir?
from the subject property. If you come out the back, you come out that property and go right, there's a 6-foot, an 8-foot wall blocking off the whole alley. That's when they built those 10 apartments several years back.
And so what's your point regarding the water that's flowing? What's the end result of that?
I'm just saying that the conditions in the back
The
are
water in the alley.
like deplorable, okay? And people have the yards back there. This thing is going right to the alley, taking up 100%. They need a variance for that too. And as far as the width, these things, this comes out, here's pictures of this. These blocks are built, as you can see in this picture. There's gonna be a void between this building and this building. These come out, they have 8-inch block on the wall. Then they have 12-inch columns to hold the 8-inch blocks. So you're doing 12 and 8, that's 20 inches coming off on each side. So you're gonna, when it goes up and they build something, you're gonna have a 20-inch void and a 20-inch void. How are they gonna close that in? They can't build the building over. They can only build the building 20 inches from each side.
Okay.
And then, I'd like to know about the condensers. Are the air conditioning condensers included in the 35 feet? There's no other place to put them.
Did you ask Mr. Prettle about the condensers when you were out prior to this hearing? I'm just wondering. That's part of the reason we asked the parties to speak.
No, he never brought it up.
Well, did you? Because you're the one raising the issue about condensers. That's why I'm asking if you asked him.
I didn't raise it at that point with him out there. We had the opportunity to meet. He's saying that he called to meet, okay? I said, I don't mind meeting with you if there's something constructive, but I don't think it's a matter of me meeting him ahead of time about the condensers. I just want to know if the condensers are part of the 30, how high, he can go up 35 feet. He's entitled to it. But he's gonna have to, there's no other place to put a condenser.
All
You
right.
cannot put them in a building.
Let me just sum up this petition for which you presented a petition with a number of signatures.
30.
And the issues, the following reasons for which the petition states that the signed parties are against the project are the parking issue, because it's 100% variance requested, the lot coverage, which we are aware of, but the contention is that there's a loss of air and light and creates a tunnel effect. Side yard, we know that's 100% variance requested. Minimum lot area, that's a variance requested. And rear yard, it backs to the alley.
And it's strictly being developed for a profit. It's a 3-apartment house where they'll derive more money out of it. It's the only thing that drives this.
All right.
But this, you can clearly see from there, how far they come out from each side.
Okay.
I've built 5 houses. That doesn't make sense. How are you gonna build a house in between that?
Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to submit for the record for the consideration of the board?
Let me see what I have here.
We have the petition, we have these
I have the
photos.
Pictures of the parking.
We had one photo of parking that's now a part of the record.
You have a picture of the wall, part of the record.
You can submit them all if you like. I just want to be sure that you've submitted what it is you'd like to submit.
I'd like to submit this too. You can see the back of the house. This is 8 foot high right here. 7.5 actually. 7.5. He's going 5 or 7 feet past this with a building. And there's no way that's not gonna block off the light and all. How are these people gonna use their backyard or plant flowers or tomatoes or whatever they want? They're not gonna have it.
Okay.
I'd like to submit that.
Very well. Anything else, Mr. Gioso?
Give me 1 minute, Your Honor. I'd like to know if they're gonna sell or rent the apartments after they're built.
Okay.
I mean, I think you already said they're gonna be rentals, right?
That's correct.
Now, the 3 chimneys, how are they going to build a 35-foot building when the chimneys are around 20 foot?
Okay, I'm gonna have,
I mean,
the appellant, I'm gonna have the appellant respond to these issues at their point in time. I just wanna know what the issues are that you're
The
raising.
issue is, it's illegal. The chimney has to be 3 foot above the existing buildings on either side. I've been through it when I built other stuff
Okay,
in Hampton.
okay.
So how are they going to address the 2 chimneys on 3431 and 1 chimney on 30? I have pictures of it if you want to see them.
If you wanna submit, anything you wanna submit, please do so.
But it's on my phone, so I have to show it to you.
I think we can take notice of the fact that there are chimneys and what their various sizes are.
How are they
Anything
going to
else?
address that? I can't answer.
Okay, there's the pregnant pause, right. They will respond, but I want to know what all your issues are. You asked about chimneys.
Chimney.
You've asked about, again, the air and light and all those things for the size of the building.
I want to know what their hardship is.
I think what they were indicating their hardship was, is that the city put up these 2 retaining walls that significantly impeded the ability to build on this property on either side because of the explosion. So it's cut into the property, so it can't be 2 houses like it used to be. It has to be 1 building.
I agree with you, but they knew that when they bought it. I mean, you can see it.
I understand, it's still a hardship from a developer.
That's the nature of that physical
It's the
property.
nature of the property, and it has nothing to do with anything they
I'd
did.
like to know if each unit is going to have air conditioning, central air.
Confident that each unit will have central air.
I understand, but I want to verify for an appeal or whatever, because of condensers. They can only go up 35
So
feet.
just
Is the
give
30?
them an opportunity to address the condensers.
Okay, I understand. Are the condensers going to be on top of this building, above the 35 feet?
Okay, I understand your question. But you do recognize you had an opportunity to ask all these specific things of, that's the purpose of getting the parties together, to find out what the issues are, and you'll know.
That's not my fault. I mean, why is it
Do
my
you want to
fault?
know?
I did want to know, but
But you didn't ask, is on my only
They
point.
didn't meet with me. They could have called and said, are there issues? I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
But don't, you're blaming me.
I'm not blaming you, sir. You're asking me questions and you're presenting it here. We will get those answers,
Okay.
or we won't. But that's the point of coming together and talking. If you have issues, raise them and we'll all know.
Controversial, I'm just.
It's not controversy. It's just a process. What else would you like, what are the other issues that we have not already discussed?
That's it.
Very well.
How-
Sir, is there anything?
How are they going to address the light and air issue, particularly on either one of the properties?
Is the property owner on the other side of you're a neighbor.
He signed the petition. He doesn't want it.
Which is that property owner? Well, we can
34.
find the address, not a problem.
Probably about 25, right?
I don't even know the gentleman.
25.
When I-
Sir, who are you?
Hi,
Come on, step on up.
Would you state your name again?
hi, my name is Larry, or Lawrence Wixulis, Wiczulis. And I live a couple blocks away.
Okay.
I've had an incident, I've been here previously for another development in the neighborhood where someone has developed, further back, took up more of the footprint of the property. They didn't go to,
Primary concern, the back?
well, multiple. It's, first of all, the historical significance of the neighbor, out of character for the neighborhood issues. It's turning into Canton up there. Now, whether, legally someone has a right to do it, That's one thing. Just as a personal, as someone, the 1880 row homes becoming these long, on my block, there's 4 of them now that the one developer did. And we have this tunnel effect. We have the haves and the have-nots, 1880 original footprints, brand new footprints that go way back. And then we're talking, and again, his property is on the north side, which the warm, when you lose light and air from the southerly exposure, it's even more important because it's the warmth of the winter sun. And also, I have a little bit of an issue with this community council and with the land use committee. The meeting that happens when there's a scheduled meeting for something like this, and the fact that immediate neighbors or people that are directly affected are not notified of these things really bothers me, because it makes me wonder about because it happened with me. I think I'm a little concerned about certain people not having information that we're having these hearings, and we're having, like here, it's notified, it's up to us, it's the owner, when signs go up, we have to, we have to be aware where the dates are and know what's going on, try to get plans and all that. But when there isn't a direct mail system, first of all, how you find out is through the flyers, through the neighborhood association. They'll put out that they're having a meeting. Sometimes it's not even specific about what the actual meeting's going to pertain to.
Okay.
All right. No one sends direct mailers to the affected houses when it's something zoning, so no one knows it's going to happen. So
That's an issue within your community association.
yeah, so I just think the relevance of having it run it through them when the directly affected people to the right and left are the ones that are going to
They're
suffer.
not notified.
But we're not here dealing with the community association.
Right.
I know, but
We're here for the zoning.
I
So
know.
So
No.
so we've heard from you, sir, as to what,
Yeah.
what your concerns are. So you're here, sir, because there was a posting, right? And so you were notified of this hearing today. What are your concerns about their project?
Yeah, again,
That
it's,
haven't otherwise
Yeah.
been stated.
Right.
and it was just in a matter of that was brought up. I'm just, okay. But yeah, it's a matter of the character, the 1880 nature of the homes. It's the actual, turning into, these houses that were small homes that were for people who were the workers of once upon a time mills. I understand. I guess he's using the actual block walls as the hardship. Why? Because other than that, if you don't have a hardship, there has to be non-monetary gain reasons why they're doing the development. So I'm just trying to. My basic complaint or concern is basically the character of the neighborhood is being changed by these sort of things, and if someone cares, they've got to show up at things like this, and that's why.
Okay, thank you.
If I could very quickly respond to these. First of all, thank you, gentlemen, both for coming up. I should mention, part of the reason the notification wouldn't have gone to this, neither of these gentlemen live anywhere near the property. He has a rental property. I live closer to the property than this gentleman, and he lives on 3400 block of Chestnut. I live about a half block closer to the subject property than he does. So there's no
I'm sorry.
part of.
Wait a second. Aren't you next door?
I own the building next door.
Okay, but you don't live there.
Live there?
No, I go home, I have parking every night. These poor people.
You don't live
wanna
there.
get out.
Just please answer the question. You don't live there.
So, that's part of and this has nothing to do with the community association process, but neither of these gentlemen live within a quarter mile. And Mr. Pierce is probably a quarter mile away, probably 1,200 feet, 4 blocks. So anyway, and in regards to Mr. Gioso's questions, any potential development will have to go through a building permit process and meet all of the building, fire, and related codes, just as any project that goes forward. And I think Don can probably very quickly address two of his specific concerns, but I think that goes for any development in the city, is that we won't build anything that doesn't meet code.
I don't really need to hear anything else.
Okay.
I'm curious where the condensers are going, just because
Sure.
you're going up to the back of the alley.
And before I let Don mention that, this zoning code does have a provision that allows for projections above both in required yards and above in condensers, as long as they meet a size requirement, are allowed over the 35 feet.
And I have a quick question to kind of piggyback off of Mr. Occam's question. The plans we have in front of us show a 3-foot deep rear yard. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe there should have been other ones emailed. This could have been during the ransomware, that the plans are essentially the same. Yeah, it is a 3-foot, you're correct,
Okay.
3-foot rear yard.
So
it's not
we're
all
not
the way
covering
to
the
left.
entire lot. We're saving
There
3
will be
feet.
room in the back.
There will be a little bit of room, and one additional, while you bring up lot coverage.
Before
Yes.
you go into that, let me kind of go into this a little further. So the zoning map of the city has I call it gray shade. It shows existing structures that whenever the satellite picture was taken, which can be some years ago, but it shows this entire block. And the homes immediately around these two empty lots have very shallow rear yards, but the properties directly to the north have much deeper rear yards. I would just like to know, roughly, approximately, how deep are the rear yards, the existing rear yards, for the properties immediately to the south of this property, as well as the 2, 3, 4, 5 immediately to the north. And for the board members' perspective, it's this zoning map page. So it shows this gray area, and where I'm getting at is, is this rear yard generally in conformance with other rear yards, or is it not? Or is it covering much more than the other properties, especially the 10 immediately to the north and to the south of this particular lot? Let's hear from Mr. Prettle first, and then Mr. Gioso or Mr. Wazulis, if you have something to add to that.
Thank you,
Mr. Baumgartner, that's a great question, and it's all relative, but the rear yard being provided is 3 feet is closer to the rear yards along the south, which from my layman's guess by looking at the picture provided by Mr. Gioso are somewhere between 5 to 7 feet. If you look at the lot depths, which is 75 feet, you can there's clearly less than 10 feet. I would say roughly 5 feet. Again, that's just
They
a
look
guess.
about 5 to 8 feet
Yes.
deep. Again, this is eyeballing
Talking
them.
a 2 to 5 foot difference.
Okay.
They're 8
Yes,
foot,
sir.
and they have side panels. Those properties, the backyard will be like this, and then there's a walkway, a 3-foot walkway in addition to the back of this. There's a 3-foot walkway that goes to the right where they have a back door that goes into it.
Okay.
And this property, their plans originally went right to the alley, and that's why I said right to the alley. I wasn't aware that they changed the plans on this. But they,
It was just
as far as the light, you can see by the chairman has a picture of the Prop 3431, which shows the building goes from like 7.5 feet to 10 feet. And even with and I'm 8 foot in. So even if I was 5 foot in and they're 3 foot, they're still passing this building by 2 feet, and that's not 5 foot, it's 8 foot. So what they're putting up is clearly, and the sun comes from the south, it's gonna block, there's not gonna be any daylight there. It's gonna be completely black.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So I have to say for the record a couple of things. First of all, the condensers, the plan is to put them on the roof, because what Nate mentioned. We met with this gentleman a couple of times, but the other 2 times that we postponed, and I asked, what can we do differently in order to satisfy you? The answer was, I cannot tell you what you can do differently because I'm not a builder. If I was hearing from him, I needed to go 5 foot back. It's something that I could have taken back, and the plans did not change. The plan has been the same change. We did not change the plans. The plans were 3 feet. You can check in the records. 3 feet from the beginning.
Yep.
I would have gone back to my architect and say, hey, let's take it 5 feet. Let's reduce here. But I have not got any guidance or any direction of like, hey, if you do this and that, we'll be on better terms. If you do this and that, I have a question about that and this. And we ask, what can we do to satisfy you? Do you want me to? And we never got any direction. The answer was 3 times or 4 times because I asked those exact words. The answer was, I'm not the builder, you are, I cannot tell you what to do. And then I told Nate, I was like, I don't know what to do. And I called him like once a week. I was like, anything we can do? He's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that was the conversation, and in those exact words.
Okay.
That's correct. And thank you, Don. That's important to mention.
And that's-
We're about finished on our end.
Anything else, Mr. Prettle?
No, thank you.
But what he's saying is incorrect.
Okay, we're done.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your presentation, folks. Thank you, Mr. Gioso. Thanks.
You bet.
Okay. Calling the next case, 29-256, 1738 Appleton Street, Christopher Thomas.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Mr. Thomas, this is a request to use first floor as a barber shop, beauty salon, and second floor as one dwelling unit. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did we not have any opposition on this signed in?
We don't have any opposition signed in. I believe we have letters in opposition from a
Yep.
couple folks.
Okay, very good. Could swear the witness?
Raise your right hands, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Any staff reports?
Yes, we have a letter dated Monday, August 26th from the Matthew A. Henson Neighborhood Association. They write that the applicant has not complied with their request to submit verbally or materially as to exactly what he intends to do with the property. They also indicate that we presently are saturated with barbershops, and we wonder what this proposal is really for. That they already have barbershops in the 1500 block, 1600 block, 1800 block, and 1900 blocks of Fulton, McKean, West North, Payson, and Pulaski and Benton. They write unequivocally, we request disapproval of this application for this proposed business at this location. That's the end of the letters.
Planning Department reviewed this application, noted it's for a property which does qualify for neighborhood commercial establishment classification. The proposed use is a personal services establishment, which is allowed in a neighborhood commercial establishment, and therefore the department has no objection to this application for a barber shop and beauty salon on the first floor of the premises. The department, however, wishes to note that use of the premises for any other type of neighborhood commercial establishment would separately require the board's approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Mr. Thomas, can you tell us about your project, please?
Yes, sir. First of all, with the Neighborhood Association, I actually had my emails because I had postponed my first original date from August 13th because, well, basically, I can give you these. And they're basically my emails with Doc Cheatham, who runs the Neighborhood Association. So I was on the docket. They were supposed to have a meeting on the 20th, so I postponed until today. I have an email in there from him canceling. So I basically was on board to sit down, talk to them, and get everything established because I'm basically trying to put a barbershop beauty salon with basically an attempt to improve better relations in the community. Of course, there's other barbershops in the surrounding area, but basically what he just was telling me was, how am I going to give back? But like, I basically wanted to go to the meeting to say that I have no problem with rebuilding with the community, giving back, but I can't do it without my business being up and running.
Mr. Thomas, what was the prior use of this property?
The property hasn't been open in 30 years.
Okay. Are there any signs on it or anything like that kind of indicating what it was like last used for?
It looked like it was like a church on the front of the building.
Okay.
Yeah, grocery store. Like my uncle said, he don't remember the store being open for like 30 years. But basically, like my recommendation is to make a safe environment where we will have security cameras, lights outside the barbershop, in addition to a no loitering policy. And basically, like I really couldn't understand why like they would go against like a boarded up property that's been there for 30 years that's really not doing anything to help the community.
Would you object to those things being conditions of this board's possible approval, like the security cameras and the signs and all those types of things?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any additional questions from the board? All right. Thank you for the presentation, sir.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Calling the case of 2019-258, 1909 North Avenue, Von Forster.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, you're Ms. Forster?
Yes.
Okay. And this is a request To use first floor as a restaurant with catering service, use second and third floors as one dwelling unit, and continue to use first floor front as an office. Is that correct?
Correct, but I did receive a correspondence from the zoning board, I believe it is, and they told me that in order to have the restaurant, I need to discontinue the tag and title business that I have in the front, so I'm, gonna do that.
All right, well, let's do first things first. Could you swear the parties, please?
Yes, raise your right hands. You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any staff reports?
Yes, thank you. The Planning Department has reviewed this application, noted that the property is contained in an office residential zone. However, it's also in a row house mixed-use overlay zoning district. And in that particular zoning district, there is only one non-residential use permitted in a particular building. What the applicant is just referring to was not a letter from the zoning board, but in fact was a copy of this commentary from the Planning Department. And we had a very brief discussion about this, and therefore she has indicated that she's interested in amending it. Officially, for the record, the Planning Department recommends disapproval of the application unless the existing office use on the first floor level of the premises is replaced by the proposed restaurant use. The Department of Planning also recommends that approval of either a restaurant or an office be subject to the condition that the floor plan provided with this application be revised accordingly to show either an office or a restaurant with a seating area with a designated number of tables and seats, and that this amended floor plan be made part of the approval. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Forrester, having heard from planning, to the extent we would be favorable to your appeal, are those conditions acceptable to you?
Yes.
And what type of property do you plan to go forward with, an office or a restaurant?
The restaurant.
Tell us about your project, please.
Well, I'd like to have an all-year-round grilling restaurant, like a smoke pit house, and of course, providing good food, and I want to...
Can you speak up? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yes. It's going to be an all-year-round restaurant for grilled food and sit-down catering.
So it's not a carry-out or a deli, it's a place where people are going to come in and sit down and order food?
Yes, and catering, if someone wanted to order something for an event, wedding, some type of occasion,
So
I could
table
provide
service,
that.
There'll be servers serving the food?
Yes.
Got it.
Do you have a sense of what the hours of the restaurant will be, the operating hours?
Probably, I would open like 7, but not actually open for the public, because I would probably have to do some prepping. And then the closing time would be midnight, sometimes earlier,
The restaurant itself will be open till midnight?
probably to 11, but we would probably have to clean up and things of that nature to prepare for the next day.
Do you have any plan to sell or serve alcohol in the restaurant?
No.
And the hours of 7 to 11, is that 7 days a week, or?
Well, Monday through Saturday. I'm not sure about Sunday yet. I know I will probably be open, but maybe it'll be a little earlier. But it wouldn't go past midnight as far as employees being into the building.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add, sir?
No, I'm just a partner, so.
Just get your name.
Maurice Briscoe. Excuse me.
Maurice Briscoe?
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah, it was one thing. We did talk to the community, and we had made a couple of pledges to them that we will interact with the community. And any way that we can help, we will. They asked us to make a donation every year for amount.
What community is this? Just I'm curious.
Community.
Okay. Here, I have a letter from them.
Oh, this is from Dr. Marvin Cheatham.
Yes. Yvonne was just out.
Any other conditions that the community placed upon you?
Well, that and just they want us to be a part of the community, which we agreed. Yvonne was out the other day walking the community with them, so she liked what she's saying and she want to get further involved.
What kind of restaurant is this? I mean, what kind of food? Do you have a current tenant? Will you be the cook? I mean, like, what's more about the restaurant?
We will be the tenant, and it's more of it's cookout. All the food will be cookout because they don't have nothing like that. Just like you have a backyard cookout.
Sure.
We just want to grill everything.
Will there be a full kitchen in the building?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because cooking out would be a problem, because
I
neighborhood
know that.
commercial establishment requires you to cook in a building. So I just wanted to make sure. I mean, you can have cookout food.
Right,
as long
that's
as
what I
it's
meant.
prepared. Okay.
But everything would be grilled.
Okay. And do you have any experience in the restaurant industry?
Yes, we did own a deli on East Side,
Okay.
2510 Robb Street. We ran
For how long?
3 years. I like to think that we ran it before we started renting it out. Okay. So yeah, we've been through the health department and all that stuff. We know how to open up if we approve.
So is the neighborhood association in favor or opposed?
In favor.
In favor.
With the donation.
With the donation?
No. Well, I did tell them that I would,
It's the Baltimore way.
I did tell them that I would provide like summer jobs for the youth and help. I do want to give back. It's not a problem. On the walk, I saw a lot of homes that were dilapidated, falling down, and just really dangerous. So what they're doing over there is a great thing, and I do want to be a part of that. So that's very meager what they were asking, but I will hire people from the community.
That's correct.
Okay, any further questions from the board?
No?
Thank you for your presentation.
Have a nice day, everyone.
You too.
Okay, calling the case of 2019-259, 2409 Roslyn Avenue, Faye Dawkins. And to the extent there's any opposition, we could have you come to my right. And before we have the party sworn, I just want to just make one commentary that we typically do when there are a number of folks present who may all wish to speak. Again, the appellant will go first. We'll then hear from the opposition. The appellant will have the last word. But with regard to the opposition, given the number of folks present, we would prefer and request that you not repeat various issues. I mean, if there are certain issues that are common to all of you, we would like them, stated once so that we're not regurgitating a lot of information because we can take it in
Yeah, and
fairly
if you're
well.
comfortable with someone acting as a spokesperson, that's obviously helpful as well. We obviously note that you're present.
All right. And with that, can we swear the witnesses, please?
All right, everybody raise your right hands, please. Raise your right hands, please, if you're gonna testify. Right hand.
Right hand.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, again, this is the case of 2019-259, 2409 Roslyn Avenue. Ms. Faye Dawkins. This is a request to use first floor for adult daycare center for up to 25 clients, in addition to existing assisted living of 8 residents patients. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Do we have any staff reports?
Yes. First, we have a letter from the Garwin Oaks United Neighborhoods Association dated August 26th. They write that the association opposes the use of 2409 Roslyn Avenue as an adult daycare center for 25 persons as follows. The Roslyn Avenue is located in the Garwin Oaks community, which is part of the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative, a community preservation program whose goal is to promote and sustain home ownership in strong, undervalued neighborhoods in Baltimore City. Introducing and/or increasing business uses undercuts and negatively impacts their goal of attracting, increasing, and sustaining homeownership in the community. They write that if the board approves the request as a conditional use, we're asking for the following conditions. The owner must provide at least 2 off-street parking spaces for its employees and a passenger loading zone. 2, no external signage with business name and/or contractor information is to be placed on the building or on the grounds of the property. 3, No evening, late night, or weekend hours for uses of the property, buildings, or grounds are to be allowed. 4, the property is only to be used for the requested use as the adult daycare. 5, the activities of the use are to be contained within the building at all times. 6, the property is to be staffed full-time with licensed staff and have medical personnel on site during hours of operation. 7, the property is to be maintained in accordance with the requirements that apply to Baltimore City, Maryland, and the federal regulations. We also have a letter from Councilwoman Sharon Middleton Green. She writes that she is writing this letter to support the Garwin Oaks United Neighborhoods Association in opposition to the use of 2409 Roslyn Avenue to be used as a daycare center for up to 25 clients. Does planning have a report?
Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property is in the Garwin Oaks neighborhood, from which you have just heard. The requirements for daycare centers for adults include a requirement or specifically limiting daycare center signs to 12 square feet in aggregate area. There is no indication in the application that the applicant intends to exceed that 12 square foot limit. The department also notes that there is not a location suitable for drop-off or pickup of adults on the site itself. However, both sides of the street bordering this property are wide, and each street does provide at least 3 car lengths of sidewalk suitable for use in a designated passenger loading zone. The applicant therefore should consider contacting the Parking Authority of Baltimore City to discuss establishing a passenger loading zone on either Roslyn or Piedmont Avenue to serve the proposed daycare during its operating hours. The Department of Planning therefore recommends approval of this application be subject to the condition that the applicants request consideration of establishment of a passenger loading zone for the proposed use. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Dawkins, should the board look favorably upon your appeal, would the conditions stated by planning be acceptable to you? Okay. Since I'm asking, what about the conditions that were listed or outlined in the letter from the community association?
Should they look favorably and not?
No, not that, we are the ones that decide the appeal, but the conditions that were presented in that letter. Did you receive a copy of that letter?
The opposition? No, sir.
That was read by the gentleman earlier.
You're talking about, we just got a copy of it.
Today.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to look at those conditions stated therein?
Briefly, yes.
Okay. Are you in a position to say whether or not you would agree to those conditions?
Let me check, converse with my partner here.
Well, I tell you what, let's put that aside and tell us about your project.
Okay, our project, we're attempting to open an adult daycare up to 25 individuals, and we're offering social activities for our participants who will be in the adult daycare, meals, transportation to and from, and we'll have professional staffing for the adult medical daycare. They will all undergo criminal history background checks, and we're asking the community to embrace our business plan.
So is the adult daycare, is this for developmentally disabled adults or no?
No.
Okay. And then it says in addition to existing assisted living, so there's currently an assisted living?
Yes.
And are those memory care patients or just regular assisted living?
Regular assisted living.
Okay, so no one with memory care, no elopement issues or anything of that nature? Okay.
What sort of adults are you going to be servicing? Like older adults?
Older
seniors?
adults, any seniors, and well, it's anywhere from 30 to senior to 80 plus years.
They're not independent, level 1.
Oh, yeah, there's not going to be Alzheimer's patients, dementia patients of that, and it's the level of care that we're looking to service are level 1 persons.
Do you want to take a minute to read what they're asking for?
Okay. Well, we will meet all of these that they're requesting.
So you're fine with those requests?
Yes.
And you're fine with limiting it to level 1 patients? Could we clearly define what that is?
Level 1 or more ambulatory patients, they're more.
Without a memory care issue.
Exactly, and they're more mobile, they're able to do their daily activities.
So you're willing to meet all of their requests, and in addition to that, limit it to the level 1 people?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you reached out at this point to the various authorities with regarding to a passenger loading location?
No, we have not.
And Mr.
But we have, it's a particularly wide street, Piedmont, but it's not a designated offloading area.
One of those conditions offered by the community deals with kind of outdoor space. Can you just address what kind of outdoor activities you were planning for these folks, if any? I don't want the board to, if a condition is kind of put on any approval about outdoor space, I don't want to be confusion. I don't want there to be confusion about that. So one of those conditions deals with kind of outdoor activities and things. So if you can just address that condition.
We have a fairly large outdoor space. Our backyard is fairly large, and the front of the yard is particularly large. We have a surround porch that offers plenty of seating, so we will have patrons sitting on the porch and sitting on the back porch, and it's just an area to be seated.
So you would agree to the conditions in that letter except for the outdoor provision?
Our community is composed of.
Can you cite the number that you were speaking of, sir?
I don't have it in front of me at the moment.
Number 5.
Yeah, number 5.
Well, that's.
Could you read
yeah,
into the record what that states?
Okay. The activities of the use are to be contained within the building at all times. Well, if I'll.
And just to clarify, you can either agree with that or not. I just wanted to get your position on it.
Okay, I do not agree with that one.
Okay.
So can we elaborate what
Sure, absolutely.
These are residents that live in the community, and I believe they should not be restricted, no different than anyone else that lived in the community. We could definitely say that they will be on our grounds and limit the activities to our grounds. However, being limited only to indoors, we totally disagree with.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that the record is clear with regard to that and that condition. Is there anything else you'd like to add with regard to your appeal? Any other information you'd like to present?
One of the things too, if it pleases, one of the things that we did hear, the great neighbors of the community prior to this hearing, there are a number of ideas that we have that could help mitigate or reduce any concerns. So we're open within reason, obviously, giving an example, if in fact if there's a necessary, is it necessary to put, for example, a trash facility, the oversized trash facility on our grounds, then we can perhaps put a fence around it of some sort in order to block off the view. So similar solutions as those that are reasonable, we are willing to introduce.
Okay.
So right now, you agree with the issues that the neighborhood brought up, except for the use of the outdoor space?
Well, you're saying issues, so I don't view any of these as issues. For us, the number 1 of 7 are simply, as I see them, as customary requests, no signage, a lot of activities over and beyond what I'm seeing is our property. So I think those are quite reasonable.
So how about number 3 on the community's list?
No evening, late night, or weekend hours uses the property building are to be allowed. So again, that, to me, that dovetails into restricting us indoors. So
You're a daycare, correct?
Yes.
It's just daycare.
It's just
It's just
daycare.
daycare
So
from
people
business
come
hours.
and they're going.
They're going. So
Yes.
Okay.
So generally, it would be.
What time will people be dropped off?
It's 8 a.m. to 4 o'clock.
Okay,
4
so people
p.m.
are all leaving at 4 o'clock, except for the people that they're assisted living people that
Correct.
live there. Okay.
So another thing too, we're gonna have our own transportation. So that would limit the number of cars that's needed to come in and out. Now, in the event there are individuals that opt out of the transportation that we would allow, more than often than not, they're gonna be dropped off by a loved one, and that loved one is just dropping them off and picking them up. So we believe, based on the business model that my wife has, the number of parked vehicles should be
Minimum.
minimum.
The city has a process through the Parking Authority of Baltimore City, and this is what's referenced in the community's letter, where you can request what's called a passenger loading zone. Essentially, they come out, they mark off an area in front of the property and put signs up and say, you know, only parking for this use here. It's customary for different types of daycare uses, adult or child, that if the board were to approve this use, that they would require you to make application to the parking authority. They would then come out, look at the property, and then tell you either yes or no, we recommend a passenger loading zone or not. So that's one of the community's conditions. You would kind of, the chairman had asked a question about that, and you had kind of indicated that you had not gone through that process yet. So I'm just kind of filling you in that is the process for that. You would make application, and then the city would come out and inspect the neighborhood and the property.
I'll certainly look into that.
Anything that you'd like to add at this point?
Well, we're trying to be a part of the community. We don't want to be an eyesore. We don't want to be a burden on a community. We're trying to be embraced by the community. I just hope that you give us an opportunity and a chance to take us at our word that we're not here to take from.
How long has your assisted living been in operation?
This is a new business.
Everything is new, so it'll be assisted living and daycare starting at once?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not operating as an assisted living right now?
Not currently.
Okay.
And this is a licensed assisted living facility?
No, we're working with the state to get that
To
license.
get the license?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We've already received our use of occupancy.
Say, permitting status, you've had the
Okay.
use and occupancy permit. All right. Okay, well, let's hear from the opposition. We'll take you one at a time to state your name and give us your presentation, please.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Marita Goodman. I'm the president of Merida. Yeah, MEREIDA, Merida Goodman. I'm the president of Garwin Oaks United Neighbors Association. I'm also the executive director of Go Northwest Housing Resource Center, which is the healthy neighborhood administrator for the Garwin Oaks community. Healthy Neighborhoods is a community preservation and community sustainability program which only certain neighborhoods are selected to be a part of, which Garwin Oaks has been for a number of years. And our goal is to increase and sustain home ownership in strong but undervalued neighborhoods. I wrote the letter, so I'll try not to repeat too.
Satisfied with what they've indicated here as far as what they're willing to do?
Well, no, and that's why we were outside so long. I first want to say that, and the neighbors here, they actually live on the block. I'm coming from, I guess, an overview kind of thing, and since it's my responsibility to write it, that's what I did. But so they might bring up some things that I might not. But the things that I was concerned about, the fact that as I stated here, the use is a business. This particular block, and it'd be great if you all could come out to see it, it's a residential neighborhood. It's a street in off of the main drag, which is Garrison Boulevard. It's a quiet residential street, tree-lined, semi-detached frame houses, and we're trying to increase that. There have been a number of new homeowners who've come into our community this year, over the last fiscal year, and some have actually bought on Roslyn Avenue. So we want to maintain that and continue that. We don't have and I'm speaking rurally, so y'all might disagree, we don't have a problem with the fact that they took a not a great looking building and fixed it up. Looks beautiful. It's wonderful. The concern is the use. You know, that's if it was being used for any other residential use, I won't say any, but preferably home ownership. But it's the fact that it is a business. And since you have my letter, I won't go through everything. But the things that I did want to bring up the fact of, one, and they have already admitted that having not come to the community, which most developers are encouraged to do by the planning department, they would have known that we already have a couple of senior-related uses in the neighborhood. They're usually on Garrison, but they're not far from this place.
What are those uses?
We have in fact, in the next block, there is an assisted living. In the block already, there's an assisted living at the end of the 2400 block. In the next block, in the 2300 block, is assisted living, which has been there for like 30 years. So it wasn't too much we could do about that one. So but you wouldn't know it because there are no signs on the building. They're quiet. But the bottom line is there are 2 assisted livings within walking distance of this place. Not for up to 25, I'm not sure how many people are in there, but there are 2 assisted living places. There are 2 eating together places on Garrison Boulevard. One is about 2 blocks away from this site, and the other is about maybe 5 blocks away. It's Augsburg Lutheran Church has an eating together, which provides activities for seniors during the day for 2 days a week. And then Wayland Baptist Church, who does have they have a senior apartment building, which has activities for seniors all week long. So it's not like we don't have enough facilities to take care of the residents, not only in our neighborhood, but in the adjoining neighborhoods of Hanlon, which is across the street, or Windsor Hills, which is behind us, which are older communities. But, we have enough stuff for them to do. And speaking for seniors, which I am now one, we can kind of do some other stuff. So it's not like, so I took exception to the fact where they talked about parking not being an issue. This particular block of 2400 block of Roslyn is a short block. I think there are 10 houses? 8 houses. Okay, they don't all have driveways. And even if you do, they park on the street. And some of us are retired, not me yet, but some of us are retired, so they're parking on the street. So that's a problem. And then I just learned today, because I did put in here, based on what our planner was telling me, about 2 off-street parking. I just assumed it would only be like a couple of people in the house. I didn't know there were like 5 staff people, so I would have increased that. But so you have 5 staff people. I just learned today about the assisted living. I don't know if we could have had any input of that or not. But that's not being discussed today. So, but seniors do drive. So even if you had this daycare center, there's nothing to say that you wouldn't have 25 cars driving up in there, because I'm assuming more people would be coming into this place. Because a lot of us, the seniors who are in the neighborhood, they're kind of wedded to where they're going now. They might come to this daycare, and they might not. So say it's not 25, but you got at least possibly 10 to 15 cars coming, parking. A lot of our seniors, we don't carpool. We like to have our own little space, So and they're staying from 8 to 4. Okay, so so I have a problem with the transportation piece. So that it would be an issue. The number 5, which they had again, this was written before I knew there was assisted living. I assumed since it was a daycare, they would be inside. Now that it's, and that's what we were disputing, that they should be able to have all their activities inside. If it's for the daycare, I'm not talking about the assistant people, but for the daycare, they should be able to have all the stuff inside. You don't need to be having, and mainly I was thinking, because sometimes if you have a use like Forest Park Senior Center, started out as a senior center, but they have church services, they got dances, they got community meetings up in there. Who's to say that wouldn't happen here? So that's why that's here. Because it's a big house. I'm not, it's not that tall, but it's wide because it was a church.
Isn't having access to the outdoors and fresh air and reading a book outside reasonable, even for a
Not for a daycare center. You go in there into the center. That's just like recreation centers. You don't see the kids necessarily sitting outside the rec center. They're going to center.
kids play outside, don't they?
Yeah, because there's a lot there. There's no, but that goes, because it's recreation. This is a daycare. But we can disagree. But you asked the question, but that was my thinking. That was my thinking. Okay. Let me see, because I want them to speak too. So I did object to that. So I know they don't agree with number 5, but that was my thinking at the time, that since it was a daycare center, then they would be having activities inside the center, not outside on the grounds. I didn't think the grounds, and they can speak to this, was that big. I know there's a front yard, but I didn't know about the backyard being that big. Let's see. I think that's basically what I wanted to say. Again, yeah, and I mentioned the parking. So again, I'll yield my time. But the concern is that on the last page of my letter, that the residents of Garwin Oaks are committed to maintaining the beauty and the character of our neighborhood, to make our neighborhood a place we call home, and that's our slogan. It's a small residential area, small detached frame houses, a few brick row, but it's a quiet neighborhood, and we just feel that bringing this use in, and I think people have a certain perceptions of seniors. They're not all little quiet, old-looking people, okay? They like to have a good time. So you're bringing 25 up with their own car. They might be bringing a buddy. Some of our ladies do have boyfriends, okay? So there's people coming in and out here. It's not a business district. Now, if they had bought a house on Garrison, North Avenue, Liberty Heights, that's where the seniors' places are that I noted, on Garrison and Liberty Heights, and it's there for a reason, because they're main drags. Those are major approachways. But Roslyn Avenue is an inner city, it's an inner block neighborhood. And I'll just leave it at that, and I'll yield my time.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? You keep, ma'am, you keep saying senior citizens, but it's my understanding that you said for this, according to the application, it says adult medical daycare.
Yes.
So adults, you said as low as 30, so it's 30 plus in age, so it's not just senior citizens.
Not just seniors.
Okay.
Oh.
The facility lends itself to be able to sit on your porch and.
Oh, I know. I've seen the building. Yeah, I know what it looks like. Okay, thank you for that. I just learned that today, because the idea that we had, and because I did tried to pull the see what it was, and all it said was daycare, adult daycare. And so in my mind, in talking to the planner, I was thinking it was like a senior center. So the fact now is you're talking younger people, that's more challenging. I won't be subjective. That's more challenging, because just because you are you have medical issues doesn't mean you don't know how to drive and park a car and bring some folks with you. So okay, I'm done.
Before we get to the next person, do you know what was this a building used?
It was a church prior to this.
It was a church prior.
Yeah. And the church and.
The owner of the property?
Of the.
I'm the owner.
You're the owner, okay. And the prior use was a church. When was it last used as a church?
That time, I don't know.
Yeah. About a decade.
No, no, it's.
Well,
I can.
everything has to be on the record. We need to know your name, so
Okay.
please don't shout out any answers.
Let me just finish, and then let me just ask them a few more quick questions, and then we'll figure out who is testifying next. Is there a backyard?
Yes.
Is the yard fenced?
No. On one side of it.
Only one person can answer.
On one side of the property, it is fenced.
Would you object to putting fencing in the whole yard?
I would not.
I understand that the fair concern is that if this was being used as a church before, certainly there were a lot of people coming and going at all times, and they probably had activities during the day, in the evenings, etc. I understand you're shaking your heads, but can you just, but I understand what they're saying, their concern about the adult, if there are 25 people, like, milling around in the front yard. I think no one's trying to restrict people from being outside, but I think it would be easier to stomach if there was some sort of barrier that contained the backyard.
And we're amiable to that.
Okay.
Just to answer your question, and they can answer it even better. I attended that church. It wasn't my home church, but it was my denomination. That church was a small church because it was in a house.
I meant it was a place that was open for business.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't want you to think.
There were people coming and going.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They weren't coming and going because basically it was a type of church that came on Sunday, and that was it. It was not a large church, something like a Bethel or a New Psalmist where you had activities all day long. It was basically a storefront that was not in a storefront building where you might have somebody come during the week to clean up. They might have a meeting at night, but it wasn't like it was 30 or 40 people coming in because they got services every night. And I think that's one of the things that they're used to, not having something open all day, every day.
Okay, thank you.
And again, just as a reminder, we absolutely don't, if everyone wants to be heard, we want to hear from you, but if it's repetitive, we definitely don't need to hear from everyone. I think she was a very good speaker, and your letter really speaks for itself.
Bernadette Crawford. First, I wanted to say that basically the neighborhood residents are against the project. Like they said, they've done a wonderful job fixing up the house, but we're a small block, 8 or 9 houses, and this proposal that we just found out about through the signs brings into the neighborhood basically more people than already live there. And as you know, the more people, the more things that can happen. The more trash, the more traffic. It is very difficult to try to hang on to a decent neighborhood in the city right now. And when we were outside, the other thing is that we didn't know anything about this. And one day, she said she wanted to bring up the neighborhood and they were going to have assisted living. Well, we just found out outside that the assisted living is already approved. We're homeowners. Some of us have been there 40 and 50 years. These are family homes. And as residents, we have a certain interest in the neighborhood. Our concern is this is a business, and no matter what your intentions, basically the interest is different. We're residents there. The gentleman explained outside to us that he's done a number of properties in Park Heights. Well, as we know, Park Heights is in a state of revitalization because there was a lot of deterioration there. That's not the case in our block. The fact, I think, that people were willing to come today, take off work, many not being paid, to say, we would rather not have this in our neighborhood, I think speaks a lot. When she first said assisted living, I was like, okay, but we already have one. But these are people who live there. And then to have the surprise of all of a sudden, up to 25 people and staff who aren't part of the neighborhood, that's upsetting. Minor thing, but still important, the parking. The one side of Piedmont, I think the dentist's office, a lot of cars parked there all day. And then sometimes from Garwin Medical Center, the overflow parking is on our street. the fact that it is a wide street really doesn't matter to me because you're not supposed to park in the middle of the street.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I just Googled this area, the 2300 block and the 2400 block of Roslyn Avenue, just to get a better understanding of what's going on in the neighborhood, and it was already discussed that there were other assisted living facilities in that area. So according to Google, there's Erica and Eric Home at 2400 Roslyn. There's Serenity Garden Manor at 2311 Roslyn, and that's an assisted living facility. And then there's also My Desire Pendleton House. I guess that has the same address as the Serenity Garden, so it may be the same. Have you had any issues with those existing assisted living facilities in your neighborhood?
Just, I think, one minor, and there's a small number of people.
Okay.
And you hardly know they're there except for the occasional ambulance.
Okay, fair enough, and that comes hand in hand with assisted living. So,
But it's not so much the assisted living piece that is concerning us because they're residents, just like we're residents.
so it's more so the adult medical daycare aspect of it.
Exactly.
If the adult medical daycare aspect of their business was less than 25 people, would that still be a problem, or is it a problem in general because it's an adult medical daycare?
I can't speak for everybody.
Just what's your position on that?
That's too many people.
So if it were
That's a
less than
lot.
25 people, because really what
It
they're
would be
asking for-
easier to stomach.
Okay, because really what
But we are basically against having the business model. We're
I understand, and that's why I asked you if you
Okay.
had any other issues with the other assisted living facilities that are in that area, because really what they're asking for is 25 people for adult medical daycare, plus the 8 that are already there, living there, so it's really 33 people.
plus
total.
the staff.
Plus the staff, okay.
Point of clarification.
Yes, sir.
Including, the 25 is inclusive.
Including the 8, okay, so 25 total, okay, sorry.
So it's not beyond 25.
Okay.
However, the sign outside, which is the only way we're getting our information, says adult daycare up to 25 persons. So that's where I get my information.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, ma'am?
Probably, but I'm a senior. If I didn't write it down, it doesn't exist. So I guess somebody else will probably bring it up for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good afternoon. My name is Marvin McFadden. I'm a resident of the block Roslyn Avenue, 2400, 2406 Roslyn Avenue, across the street. I'm ill-prepared today to really address you the way that I would like to, because this is the first time that we've had information presented to us with regards to this particular address and the use of the building. I also pastor Mount Zion Hill Baptist Church, and I'm very well acquainted with the various facilities in Baltimore City that serve those who are disabled and also seniors who are in need. But I have a question with regards to this facility being used along with those that are already in the neighborhood. I am aware of the dentist's office on the corner of Garrison and Piedmont Avenue, that from time to time, when we turn into the neighborhood using Piedmont, there can be anywhere from 15 cars parked on both sides of the street, because people have to park and then walk back to the building because there are no other parking spaces available. On Roslyn Avenue, my wife also is here with me. We've been in the house for 20-some years. And certainly we have seen the church. I'm very familiar with the church, the former pastor, Pastor Hipkins. They only had 25 to 50 members, and the congregation dwindled. They've done an outstanding job to the facility. It was in deplorable conditions, They have converted it. It is a monument to that particular block. As people drive through, they stop and look. It looks like a mansion. And that is the truth, and I think all the neighbors agree. However, the neighborhood has been residential other than the church having been there for some 50 years or more. And now that it's no longer being utilized as a church to establish a business in our community, I do believe, along with the neighbors, that it does not lend itself to the viability of family as we would like to see it. That is a preference. They've asked me to say a few words. I really would like their voices to be heard as well. But certainly my concern is I was attempting to buy the property for residential living, for my wife and I to move there and then allow our children, our daughter, to live in our home. Now, the problem that I have, and I asked the developer, why did you not engage the community prior to your planning to get our support, to help us understand how we can be of support with you? And now we're here today, 2 hours before, and there's a quick conversation outside the door. Let us talk after the fact of how we can go about this. I think that it was intentional. I don't feel that it was in the best interest of the neighborhood, the community, and also it is going to impact us in a way that there will be much more traffic. The actual property itself, there's not a large backyard area. I'm very familiar with it. I've preached in that particular building. I was very aware of it. And so you're looking at the space of this wall to that wall, half of it as the backyard, a deck that has been put up. It does not allow itself much room. There is a garage that has been converted for some use, but the deck itself, because I have a deck on my back which is about the same size, and it can seat maybe 20, 25 people. But that's a lot of people to have on the front porch as well as either on the back porch. I think it does have a ramp for wheelchair access, I'm not sure. But certainly there needs to be off-street parking for the staff. It needs to be a dumpster for trash. I take my broom and I go up and down the street because I'm concerned about the neighborhood. And they take chicken boxes and throw out their car windows into the street. So I just don't know what the people who will be staying there will do, those who are coming each day. I'm not trying to cast a light of people who are not having any morals or values. I'm just getting choked up about this because had I been given much more time, I would have prepared much more to say in a more formal manner. But I think that the consensus here today is that we do not approve of this business. It is a business venture for profit, not a institution or a service just for the needs of the people. We feel that as it comes into our neighborhood, there can be no partnering for us to share in the work that they're doing because it requires professionalism and expertise with regards to it being a mental health facility. Are they going to dispense medication, drugs of any kind? What will those who come into the community, their backgrounds, what will they offer to our community? What about the children in our neighborhood who might be out in the street, perhaps not being supervised? Those persons who might be in the facility, their backgrounds, if they come out and they're not monitored with the staff, what can we expect? We do have an area, I was held up just this past Thanksgiving in my driveway. So we know the element can come from near or far. But 30, 25 people coming in each day, how do we govern that? Now is not the time. I don't feel that the neighborhood feels confident, and I know that they have some other thoughts, for us to go back and determine how can we partner in this effort. I watched the building go from the church to the actual demolition. I did personally ask the developer, I said, I have a question. Did you follow all of the procedures and protocols for pulling all the permits. We talk about integrity. You're saying you're committing yourself to this effort and to the neighborhood. I don't want to question your integrity, but did you follow the proper procedures with all permits with regards to the roof, with regards to the siding? My concern is if you are so invested and telling me now that if we talk, we can have a partnership where we can work together. I take a person at their word until I have a reason to believe otherwise. I did not see any permits on the property, in the windows or on the door until they started the electrical work, just from me sitting on my porch. I was very interested in what it was going to become because, as I said, I wanted to buy it to convert it into a home. And so because of that, now that it's a business and I thought it was going to be a church, that's what I heard at first. And then all of a sudden, I just see the work begin, the roof is put on, the siding is put on, the porch is brought up. And these are concerns for me.
Okay.
So if they're saying that their proposal is this today, are there any guarantees that the intentions that are written and presented before the zoning board, are they going to be carried out? Are they genuine?
So, Mr. McFadden, and for the rest of the community, the board's hearing kind of a common theme here that you don't want this business in a residential neighborhood. But just to give a very, very, very brief, broad stroke explanation, the city council writes the zoning code. So they sit down, they write the entire zoning code, which says you can have these uses in these neighborhoods, and you can't have these uses in these neighborhoods. The use of adult daycare is what's called a conditional use in this residential neighborhood. So city council said they can have daycares in this residential neighborhood. This board is what's called a board of limited jurisdiction, meaning that the board does not say we like this idea or we don't like this idea, and that's how they vote. The board goes through the code and Maryland law and says this either meets the law or it doesn't meet the law. As a conditional use, daycares are presumptively valid in this zoning district. So in order for this board to deny the request, they'd have to find there was something special about this property and this use that makes it particularly bad and worse than any other use in this area. That's kind of the legal construct of this. You had mentioned something like the dentist's office. Generally speaking, business uses would not be allowed in this district. I don't know about that dentist office. I don't know if it's in the same zoning district, but specifically daycares, child or adult, are conditional uses valid in the zoning district, and that's simply what the zoning code says. So for the benefit of the rest of the community, what the board values is, how is this particular use particularly bad in this particular property, and how would it be worse here than anywhere else in this neighborhood?
Well, and I think we've heard from, first of all, thank you for that. That's the perfect explanation. We've heard from you why you don't want it, and we've also heard some valuable information about things that we as a board can take into account when we make a decision, whether we're going to require them to do certain things in order to operate. That's one thing we can do. We can put stipulations on their ability to operate. And the happy news is that they've received your letter and that they've said on the record that they want to do all the things that you've asked for. And that, I think, is a good step in the right direction.
Right. I also wanted to mention, you brought up the issue of permitting, and that, I understand why you said that. But again, from our perspective and from the record keeping, there doesn't seem to be any untoward issues with regard to permitting. There doesn't seem to be anything that was done that was not permitted to do. And with regard to guarantees, that's part of the purpose of, I suspect, the request for conditions, if it's going to be approved, and then will you abide by those conditions? And I think that's the extent of guarantees that one could provide, either from, planning states conditions, the letter stated certain conditions, and the applicant can seek to agree to them or not. That's part of that whole process. But we have heard quite a bit of the same thing, which is not the business. And I understand, you don't want a business model. If anyone has anything else to present that is different, and in addition to anything that has not been stated,
I do. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to go ahead?
Mine is quick. Just hearing today, Angela McFadden, Angela, last name McFadden. Just hearing today when she was given a range of 30 to maybe 80, age-wise.
Yes, ma'am.
That does not, we don't know the mentality of the people that may be using the facility, coming in and out. I have 18-month-old, 6-year grandchildren that play in the yard, but they're there. We don't know what type of people that they're going to be able to bring in to use the facility. Right now, there's no one there.
She actually indicated that she was going to
30.
limit it to level 1 people.
Okay.
That are ambulatory and don't have memory care problems. And having said that, that's something we can hold them to,
Okay.
now that they put that on the record. Not memory care issues and ambulatory people.
Yeah, I didn't know what level of care meant. What, not ambulatory? I mean, they can walk, come and go as they please.
But again, unfortunately, given what Mr. Baumgartner said, like that isn't something that we're really, you would have to be telling us something that would make this situation unique.
Yeah. I was thinking about the
So
safety issue. And I guess I'm a little leery because each time we hear something, it's different. Like right now, nobody's in it. I know they said assisted living is completely vacant. There's no one there. So we still don't know. I mean, I guess on my part, the trust factor, even being here, I don't know what really is going to be there. They said assisted living, they said gay care. It's changed different times. So that's just my feeling of untrust that I can't guarantee, but I'm thinking about the safety and everything. Like, I'm a third generation in the house. My grandmother and I inherited it, like I said, 30 years ago. And then I hope my child would keep it. But that's the mentality of what we've had in our neighborhood all along. And business is business and home is home. And we would like it to be home.
Understood.
Paulette Hardy. I live 2501 Rosalind Avenue. Their building is on the corner. I'm on the opposite side. During the process of them renovating, my husband and I initiated contact and talked with them, and they always seemed guarded and sheltered and didn't want to talk to us about exactly what they were doing or how they were going to do it or anything. Sure, they let us in, but that's no conversation, if you follow what I'm saying. My mother-in-law lived there since 1960. She passed in 2017. She raised my husband and his sisters and father. They all lived there, so we're like the second generation in that house. Their back of their building faces my front. My house front door is on Piedmont. So right across the street would be, you could see down through their yard, and that's open. And then there's a garage. My concern was garbage. Now they say medical, so there's medical garbage to be concerned about. There is no place other than the garage with a cement walk-up, ramp, that you could put a dumpster. And my concern is the dumpster with trash. People see a dumpster, they say, Miss Trash Day, I can put my trash here. Then is there the rodents? Because the first thing you do when you're running a business, and I'm quite sure they know, you cut costs where you can. So the first thing would probably would be 1 pickup a week instead of 2.
Where's the trash picked up now?
On the front.
Okay, so if they'll agree to use cans in the front?
How are they going to secure them and keep rodents out of them?
But if you have, I'm assuming all of the other residents have, if trash is picked up in the
We
front.
do that.
Okay.
We do that. But we're talking for 26 people plus, okay? That's a lot of trash, okay? That is a lot of trash. That's where my concern is. If the trash is not cared for properly, then you're going to have rodents. And no one wants rodents in their neighborhood. No, you could do without it. Okay, that's a concern. The other concerns have already been named: parking, type of people there, hours of operation, that sort of thing. Are they going to clean up after their people after they park? I don't know. They didn't promise that. The main concern, which I think makes us uneasy, is that these people continue to do this and never contacted the neighborhood association, never made any mention, had a meeting, presented their plan. They just did what they did. And when we saw a sign posted, that's the first time most of us got concrete information as to what was going on. Like I said, my mother-in-law lived there since 1960. I have an arts and craft house. Everything in it is original, except the furnace and stuff like that. But, you know, all of the wood is there. It's white oak. It's gorgeous. I got stained glass. I got a lot of things. I like it. I like old things, you know. My level of confidence and trust in these people is zero.
Okay. I think we understand that, ma'am.
And I really don't want them in the neighborhood because, you know, I know you don't have powers to make people do what they should be doing. Once it leaves here and they're okay, you know, any promises made out there are null and void, okay? And it depends on a person's integrity and how much you can put in their word, their trust. Zero. These people have not demonstrated that to this community or to me, and I was at arm's reach right across the street at any time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Vivica Haynes, 2403 Rosalind Avenue. I wrote down what I needed to say so I can do it very quickly. But before I do this, the couple here said that they would be getting level 1 clients. Everybody doesn't know what level 1 means. Level 1, people are assessed according to their ability. Level 1 requires the minimum amount of care or supervision. And I can assure you that if you open your facility and we find that you have level 3, which pays 3 times the amount of level 1 or 2 times the amount, you will get level 3 people because it is a business. And in the money-making business, you want to make your ends meet. So we will hold you to level 1 clients. Level 1 clients can come from drug addicts, anything. And when you bring a drug addict into the neighborhood, not only will they sometimes fall back and go back into drugs, there's the level of noise associated with the number of people. Trash and debris we already spoke about. People standing on the corners, loud music as people pull up and pick up their loved ones. Voices, loud voices, panhandling, the solicitation of prostitutes or on the corner, smoking of marijuana while you're standing there waiting for your ride, wandering off, perhaps breaking in people's homes, the potential for carjacking, people stealing packages off your porch, out of control gatherings. You may have sexual predators who are level 1 clients. These things are concerns. And if they're standing out there smoking outside, they pluck a lit cigarette that will set all the leaves on fire with all the trees around. That is not good. I did mention panhandling, did I not? Those are my concerns. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
One other thing I'd like to say, learned from my father years ago when we were looking for a house, and there was a big empty lot in front of one that we were really interested in. And he said, even though we like the house, we can't do this because we never know what's going to happen with the lot. And sure enough, a big school was put there. So we wouldn't have wanted to go there. My point is, we have a certain expectation of our neighborhood, especially the few who just moved there. And this was not part of the plan. It was sold to us as a nice residential neighborhood. And interestingly, our little tiny block is one of those kind of best kept secrets. There are neighborhoods in the surrounding areas that really aren't as nice.
Very well. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Folks, we'll hear from you finally. I'm sorry, you.
Yes. Name's Gerard Hardy. My statement is the houses have been there for eons, since 1925. The 4 driveways for the both opposite ends of Piedmont, 2 houses on each end, the 4 driveways are all clustered in the same area. And if they had to use a large trash facility, there would be no space to function as far as moving a trash facility in and out to a truck to offload or unload without affecting the other 3 driveways. And that's my statement.
Thank you so much, sir. All right. I think we've heard from all the opposition. Folks, you'll have the final word. And so if there's anything you'd like to respond to?
Go ahead.
Thanks again. Definitely appreciate hearing the concerns of the neighborhood. And as I'm hoping my sincerity comes across, I profusely apologize for not engaging early. And I'm reaching across the aisle and hoping that we can indeed work close together to make sure that, if approved, that we'll provide not only a product and service that is of high quality and one that you could probably say that you're happy exists in your area. Like I said before, we are indeed flexible to some of those concerns raised, and I'm sure there'll probably be others in which, as we have inspections and such, we are definitely will adhere to it. We've been transparent with the city as it relates to permits and full disclosure. We have all approvals on file.
Very well.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Yes, ma'am.
Deliberations, because I haven't done this in a long time. Can you put a limit on the number? If you do agree to approve it, and since that you said
We're off the
daycares.
record, by the way. The hearing is over. I
Yep.
have to make
Oh.
sure.
Yep, you're right, Bryce.
Doesn't seem like testimony.
No, it's a general question about board practice.
Okay.
Yes, board in a conditional use can put almost any condition that's allowable by law on any use.
Okay. Okay, that's all I was, I didn't know that when I wrote this.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, finally calling the case of 2019-266, 3019 East Baltimore Street. Carlos Reyes Bravo.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We have, this is a request to use first floor as pizza carryout. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And your name?
Luz Valladares.
Okay.
L-U-Z, last name V-A-L-L-A-D-A-R-E-S. And Mr. Carlos Reyes is my father. He had an inconvenience with his van this morning, with his working van, and he wasn't able to come in today. So I'm speaking on his behalf today.
Okay. I guess we need to swear this party.
Raise your right hand.
Sure.
Swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do we have any staff reports?
Yes. First, we have a letter from the resident at 18 North Elwood Avenue. It's dated August 26th. He writes, under the zoning law, carryout businesses are prohibited in properties that are zoned R8. Also, any grandfathering carryout use that previously existed for this property has been forfeited since it has been vacant and not in use for over 12 years. The last conditional use permit for 3019 East Baltimore Street was applied for in 2007, but was never issued. By law, the City of Baltimore Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals is required to reject this application since a carryout is not a permitted use in the R8 district. We also have a letter from Councilman Z. Cohen. He said, given the use of this property as a carryout establishment has long been abandoned, and that carryout establishment is not permitted in the R8 district. I oppose this appeal and would encourage the owners of the property to meet with the local community association, the Patterson Park Neighborhood Association, to better understand the needs of the neighborhood and to discuss potential future approved uses for the property. And then there's planning's report.
Planning Department reviewed this application, noted for the record that in 2018, the zoning administrator had put on the record a voiding of the previous use of the property as a carry-out food shop, and therefore there has been at least 12 months of consecutive non-use of this property for that purpose. This property is eligible for neighborhood commercial establishment uses, but a carry-out food shop is not a neighborhood commercial establishment use permitted by the zoning code. For these reasons, the Department of Planning recommends disapproval of the application because non-conforming use of this property has been discontinued for at least 12 consecutive months, and the zoning code does not authorize establishment of a new non-conforming use, which a carry-out food shop would be in the R8 zoning district where this property is located. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Did you understand what was just stated with regard to the
Yes,
use of this?
somewhat.
This property apparently has been not in use for more than a year.
Yeah, for more than a year.
And under the new code, a carry-out pizza shop is not allowed in that space, at that location.
Okay. The reason why it was closed that whole year, he was remodeling the whole thing. They have installed new equipment. Roundly about $20,000 already invested in that small business area. It was recently opened before, I would say roughly 8 to 10 years. When he did work with that, it was actually named Pizzeria Tex-Mex, and what it was Mexican food and pizzeria carry-out. And since it's such a small business, it could only fit so much tables and so much seats in there. But it was recently before most carry-out, when he did cross that over to my father.
Well, you acknowledge that the property has been not in use for a long time.
Yes, I do realize that.
Unfortunately, that's where there's nothing we can really do about that. The fact is, if it's been not operable for more than 12 months, you can't now bring, even if it was a business that was existing previously and operated and did well, the new code does not allow such facility, to
Right.
be in that location.
So since my father is not really so used to about the whole regulations about small businesses, how come he did not get a notice from the city stating that if it's been closed for like more than 6 months, which is half a year, he didn't get a notification?
Well, the business hasn't been operating for more than a decade, right? He's not going to get a notice. He's got to read the code. The code was redone in 2017.
Okay.
And that established what the new rules were with regard to these things. Now, I would encourage your dad to contact, as it was suggested, about other possible uses for the property, so that it's not a complete abandonment of it. If he has some interest in something, but it cannot be a carry-out pizza shop. That is one of the express prohibited exclusions for that zoning district presently under the new code. And so I think you can invite him to reach out to the folks in the city and the planning department, whomever else that he can speak to try to salvage what
Something different from a carry-out restaurant? Like maybe I would say, for example, barbershop or...
Could be something like that.
Something like that?
Correct. So
Okay.
the code, the property has a long history of different commercial uses, which is a good thing. The zoning code specifically says that carryouts aren't one of them, right? So a sit-down restaurant, offices, personal service establishments like barbershops, salons, there are many, many different options that the property owner or you could go down. Just carryout's just not one of them. So we would certainly recommend reaching out to the planning department. Every district in the city has a community planner.
Okay.
So I would recommend reaching out to the community planner for that district and saying, hey, we have this property. What does the community want there? What could you foresee? kind of putting in that space. Is just unfortunately carryout's not on that list.
Okay.
Martin, do you have a card on you that you could give this young lady so you could at least steer her in the right direction?
No, I don't, but I would like to talk with them after you've finished the hearings today. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, well.
Well, thanks for your
Okay,
presentation.
all right, thank you so much.
Appreciate you
All right.
Right. I think that concludes the docket.
That's it.
All right. You can talk about anything you want. I got